ever wish that you could read people better, that you knew more about them, really when you meet them? Dr. Nick joins us this morning with some tools to read people better. Great to see you.
Good morning, and a very good topic.
Yes, right, because
very good topic.
You know, sometimes maybe there's someone that you work with or someone who is a friend of your child's, or you know someone a little bit, but you think, I want to get to know them better. But maybe to do that, you have to be able to read them.
To read them. And what about, you know, if we're interviewing somebody for a job?
Right.
I mean, we need to be able to read them. And it's not a manipulative read. It's just, let me get to know how they are in natural settings.
And it may just be a job like babysitting your children, or
sure,
you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, total workplace.
Right.
What would you say one of the first things is we need to do?
Well, I've been reading up on this ever since you said this would be a good topic. And interestingly enough, one of the top suggestions is to take them to dinner or to lunch, to a restaurant, and watch, not so much for manners, and although I think that's important too,
sure,
but it's to watch how they interact with the waiter and with other people, and how they handle if things aren't the way they're supposed to be. Because
sure,
you're checking frustration level. Are you able to have a good time?
How do you handle conflict?
How do you handle conflict?
Disappointment.
And again, think about that in terms of someone working. See how they work that restaurant and how they're doing in that kind of a setting. I like to also say, Whitney, on top of that I didn't read much about, but I truly believe it, and that is to socialize with them.
Okay. So group instead of one-on-one. That's interesting.
Absolutely. You and I have a relationship one-on-one, but there's a different dynamic when there are 5 or 6 people. Or even more people.
Oh, certainly.
You know that. And so you're watching to see how they interact with other people and how they interact with you. I've had people say to me, gosh, my wife certainly is different when she's around a crowd. Oh. And then you're able to kind of look at it and maybe even confront it in a good way and say, well, what's the difference? You know, what is it that I'm not offering? You can learn a lot and grow from it.
When you're in that group setting, what are some important positives to look for? And are there any red flags?
Well, the red flags would be, I think, to see what kind of, if there's sarcasm, if there's what I call pontificating, people wanting to, you know, rule the show.
Be smarter than everybody else.
Be smarter than anybody else. Focus primarily on them and not show interest in other people's.
Okay.
I am always fascinated with watching the dynamic to see who is asking, tell me about yourself, or tell me how are you doing? Because some people really, they just want to talk about themselves.
Right.
And I like to nip that in the bud, so I'll shift the subject to, hey, how was your day?
You're masterful at
that. Or tell me more about yourself. And it moves it away from that person and even helps that person realize there are other people in the room.
Yeah, I've been monopolizing this whole thing.
Yeah, and there is social anxiety in people, so we need to even encourage that more and more.
Yeah, so the positives out of that would be if they're engaging, listening, you know, pay attention, and share the focus of the room.
And inclusive, and especially if there's someone in the room that's not necessarily a part of the group.
Great.
It really is. Social will tell you a whole lot about a working environment. You know, how do we handle those who are new? And
ask how many. This was interesting. Ask how many broken bones someone has had.
I read that.
I don't know that you necessarily agree with that.
Well, I just thought it was an interesting theory because they were saying something about the risk taker. That it's just a wonderful way of saying, are you willing to take risks? And I have to tell you, I had one broken bone. I was playing volleyball, so I guess where would I chart on the risk taking? I think you've had a few falls.
I've had a few falls, a few broken bones, and a few accidents.
Yeah, that was cute, and I also like the notion of listen to what people say and whether they're being focused on truth, or whether they're saying something that they want you to keep secret.
Oh, interesting.
If I'm telling you something that's basically the truth, okay, I don't have to worry about it later, huh?
Right. You don't have to worry about what you told me.
I don't know.
But if we're having a conversation and I keep hearing over and over, but don't tell anybody, but don't tell anybody.
Or don't tell her I said this.
Yeah.
Don't tell him I said this.
yeah, there are two relationships that are probably in trouble. The one that the person doesn't want them to know the truth about how they feel, and then that they want you to keep a secret.
Yes. And it's so, you know, you're talking about reading. Don't you think that you're reading, when you read that, it's like, it's the credibility. Mm-hmm. It's the credibility. What can I believe? But see, this is a fascinating topic. What about setting good boundaries with people and saying, you know, I'd really rather not talk about that, or I'm focused on this right now. I'll get back with you on that. And I think when people do that, doesn't your respect rise a little bit instead of?
I wanted to go back just briefly, real quickly, to the person who always says, "Oh, but don't tell anybody." But don't. Is there a point that we should just say, I can't be responsible for keeping your secrets? I mean,
I think that's a great answer.
Okay.
And or look, don't tell me if you don't want me to tell anybody.
Yeah, I got a big mouth.
Because I just don't want to work that hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to remember what can I say and what I can't say.
Right. Well, listen, thanks so much for the tools to helping us read people better. Much more Weekends with Whitney right after this.